Happy holidays, friends. We hope everyone's enjoying this special time with their families. If you need to escape that crazy uncle or walk off with some eggnog and listen to a great podcast, the Hospitality Hangout's got it. We're bringing back this episode. It's a classic with our friend Phil Crawford from CKE. You won't want to miss it. Hospitality Hangout Holiday Edition.
Thanks for joining us for Season 3 of the Hospitality Hangout, a hospitality-focused podcast where the founders at Branded Strategic share their insights and bring technology and innovation leaders that are making things happen in the industry we love. My name is Jimmy Frischling, otherwise known as the Finance Guy, and I'd like to introduce my partner and good friend, Mr. Michael Schatzberg, also known as the Restaurant Guy.
Thanks for that kind introduction, Jimmy. And to all those listening, feel free to call me Shatsy. Together, we are the personalities behind Branded Strategic Hospitality. We work at the intersection of hospitality, technology, innovation, and capital. But Jimmy, before we dive right into it, because we have an amazing guest today, I have to ask you a question. It's been bothering me all day. Do you know anything about this branded marketplace that's been launched? An e-commerce platform for innovation and technology, best in class in hospitality. Do you know anything about this?
Gee, Shatsy, I would like to learn more. Please, could you tell me?
I got to tell you, we have launched the branded marketplace, thebrandedmarketplace.com. You can go check it out. We have loaded up the best-in-class solution, starting off with technology for everyone in hospitality, all the operators. You go there to one-stop shop. It's the best-in-class for all sizes and shape, restaurants, hotels, anybody who's in travel and leisure. You go there, and we've loaded it up with some of the best companies, every solution you need to run your business today. And let me tell you, you need technology. That's what's helping us get through this and grow and scale. So you got to check it out, Jimmy, if you haven't. And for those listening, if you want some more information about it, you can go to marketplace@brandedstrategic.com and shoot us an email. So that is my shameful plug today, Jimmy.
Oh, and here I thought this was just between you and me, Shatsy, and you're telling all our listeners. All right, great. Be that way. Not such a secret anymore. All right. Thank you for that shameless plug. Well played, sir. Well played. All right. Let's get into this. Today, we have a really exciting episode. I think all of our episodes are great, but we are particularly excited because we got a good friend of Branded on with us, Mr. Phil Crawford, Chief Technology Officer at CKE. He is a tremendous industry veteran, and we'd like Phil to kick us off, give us a little background on himself, and of course on CKE Restaurants. So Phil,
and what is CKE and what does it stand for? I think that's what we got to know.
That's the only question we have today, Shat. That's it.
The only question.
CKE, we'll end this podcast in 6 minutes.
This is the greatest podcast ever. Then one question and
one question and do that.
But thank you both, gentlemen, for having me. It's always a pleasure to give back to you guys because you're awesome in every single way. But I'll answer the first question since you ask it. CKE stands for Carl Karcher Enterprises.
Boom.
There you go. And
all right, what's the K? What's the K?
Carl Karcher Enterprises.
Oh, is that Carl? Is that Carl? Carl Jr.?
That's Carl Sr., the original founder of Carl's.
The original founder.
I love it. Look at that, everybody. Breaking news on the podcast.
Exactly.
All right.
But yeah, it's we're part of CKE. Actually owns Carl's and Hardee's, but we also own Red Burrito and Green Burrito, which are little Mexican restaurants built inside those two awesome brands. So it's a great overall organization. I've had the privilege to be here for a short time. Obviously my stint before this was with, Yard House in Darden. And then after that with Shake Shack. And then most recently with Godiva. Now I'm here in good old Nashville, Tennessee with CKE.
Is that the whole intro? Because that's the shortest intro I ever got.
No, that's not the whole intro. That was my little teaser for you. So
Shat, you're calling our guest out, man. Like, how about welcome the guy? Welcome the guy.
Okay.
No, I didn't know if I should jump in on the next question.
Let's go, man. We got a lot to do. Let's do this.
Let's just go, right? So I've always been in the hospitality segment ever since I was 16. Ironically, my first career job was at Carl's Jr., so you can say I've fully come full circle now. And always been in it from a technology standpoint ever since college. So with the Yard House Restaurant Group out of Orange County, California, helped build that organization until it got acquired by Darden. And with that organization, we did some pretty bleeding edge technologies for the fast casual or full service dining segment, known for a bar and grill and beer, which is always good, and food and amazing audiovisual. And then was blessed enough to move over to Shake Shack and really build out the technology empire that's there now today. everything from the tech stacks to the digital application to the consumer sentiment and all the back-end cloud infrastructure that still runs that amazing brand and the leadership over there today. And then moved over for Godiva for a short stint because I figured that, I'm going to indulge myself in some of the delicious chocolates they had and get out of the burger industry, and spent a couple of years there on a global standpoint and built out their technology infrastructures, but also really heavily on the supply chain for optimization, as well as some consumer sentiment applications, as well as front guest facing applications. And then most recently, as we started with, I'm over here at CKE now, doing a lot of the great things that we need to do here to make us digitally relevant in our very competitive QSR market. So there's your brief history of time for Phil Crawford.
There you go.
Well, it's a lot shorter than Jimmy would do. Jimmy would be a half hour.
I resemble that remark. I mean, I resent.
You resemble that remark?
I resent that remark. I would have been short, brief, tight. Now, listen, Phil. Appreciate the intro. I hope you take this with the thoughtfulness and compliment that it's intended. I consider you a journeyman as you go from burgers to chocolate. Delicious chocolate, back to awesome burgers, and also from New York to Nashville. Your experience has far reach and breadth, and we love it. From an operational standpoint, how has the transition been from leading the tech charge for brands based in New York City to the beloved regional brands based in the South? And I'd love to hear more about the differences if you don't mind sharing it. I'm sure Schatz and I maybe take offense to the following because we'd love to hear about the differences you see in Nashville dining versus the New York City dining scene from your perspective.
Yeah, look, New York City and Nashville, Tennessee are two different parts of the spectrum. I've always said getting off the subways in New York City, you better be ready to go or you're going to get run over. Here, I could walk and not see somebody for miles upon miles upon miles. So there's a little bit two difference there. The exciting part is that, when it comes down to hospitality and technology, there's a lot of synergies between both cities and both, large corporations in both. They both have a desire and drive to be the best they possibly can be. And it kind of was one of my montages that I've always carried with me moving forward. It's kind of a long-term quote is, followed from my Danny Meyer days, the bigger we get, the smarter we have to act. And it's always been, true and tried with regards to, even though we have 38 to 4,000 restaurants here in the CKE world, and when Shake Shack, when I was there, had 200, it's still that same methodology and mentality. It's all about scale and size. And it's all about ensuring that at the end of the day, we have the guest experience in mind and treat them with enlightened hospitality. But on the food side, I'll be honest, it's totally different. New York is very eclectic.
Different good or different bad? Or just different?
Well,
Phil's going to be diplomatic. Trust me. We're going to get.
No, I'm not going to be diplomatic.
Oh, damn.
We're getting Phil in trouble.
We're
throwing him out of Nashville.
No, so being the health conscious Southern California, yoga, acupuncturist freak I am, I have a hard time finding, healthy eats here in this city. We're in New York, I could go around the corner and get salads all day long and have an amazing cuisine, whatever I wanted, if I wanted to be bad or good. Here it's extremely different. It's a different palate. It's, everything's fried, which is not good for my waistline, but I still love it.
But it's good going down.
It's good going down. They're great eats. I mean, both associations, from the New York Restaurant Association and the Tennessee Restaurant Association are really heavily involved. It's great to see the single unit operators, but also the big brands just thrive in both cities. And I mean, I'm happy that, we've come out of all these different rough periods and have all learned to adjust and really support the industries. And I think the food will continue to be evolved and will continue to inspire both coasts from side to side.
Well, that's awesome. I had another question, but before I get to it, you mentioned Carl's Jr.'s that we all know. You mentioned Hardee's, we all know. But you said red burrito and green burrito. For us New Yorkers here, I don't know those brands. Can you just give a little bit about those guys?
Sure. So inside of select Carl's Jr. restaurants and Hardee's restaurants are red burritos and green burritos. They are a mini microcosm of a little Mexican stand. So burritos, tacos, taco salad, and such. It really was born out of Southern California, so it's more heavily on the Carl side, more on the West Coast in general. And it really is just a menu that's always been part of our brand. It's a little sub menu of our larger menus.
Is that virtual or I can walk in and get it?
You can actually get it. So if you want to get a burger and a burrito, you can do it in select markets.
Wow. That's unbelievable. I never knew that. That's unbelievable. Well, there you go. That's the second big news we got on the podcast. Breaking big news.
And it is number 2. And it's a cult following. You'd be shocked.
Yeah, no. And is that a healthy option for you, or they don't have that red burrito and green burrito in Nashville yet? It's only on the West Coast.
It's not a healthy option, but it's only
it's
on the
not.
West Coast.
Shatsy, what kind of burritos are you getting, man?
Yeah, I know, right?
I was thinking, my kids are telling me how healthy Chipotle is. They're always like,
Low fat tortillas, low fat sour cream, cheese.
Yeah, I'm glad we got that cleared up. So that's cool. So now we got the second big news. We know what CKE stands for, and we now understand red burrito and green burrito. So this is already a win as a podcast.
Awesome.
So let me ask you, I've always thought of myself as an early adopter of technology within hospitality. We were using OpenTable. I know it doesn't sound like an early tech company, but 23 years ago, we were using OpenTable. You're an early leader in technology. I mean, you've been, you mentioned Shake Shack and Godiva. So with all the major brands that you've been working with, incorporating all the tech, what other things are you seeing outside of just, because when I think about tech, when I speak to operators, they're like, I'm loaded with tech. I got a POS. And as far as they're concerned, that's it. What are you seeing out there right now to pile on to the tech stack outside of just the POS, which I'll say is the original tech stack?
Yeah, look, I think any kind of digital ecosystem that's out there that you can really infuse the guest consumer experience is where everything's going, right? POS, I think, has had its heyday, quite frankly, because everybody needed a cash register to ring in orders. But now, with everything being in the advent of mobile technology in people's hands, that is a catalyst for change. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing more cloud-based systems coming online. We're seeing more direct consumer interaction coming online. We're seeing the advent of big data and small data, analytics, artificial intelligence to really help bridge that gap from what we think our consumers know to what they actually do know, and how do we make it a personalized journey. That is where the industry is moving. And that's the kind of incorporating tech that we all need to be thinking of in order to become technology evangelists, number one, but also on bleeding edge to have the competitive advantage in our industry. Because,
could I become a technology evangelist?
Of course, Jimmy. Yes, you're a financial evangelist, a technology evangelist, an eating evangelist.
Technology evangelist.
Yes.
I want that.
I
want that.
Well, we're going to use that. I'm using that in my next call.
You could use it. That's
and I'm footnoting.
That's number 3 then you can take from this call. There's a saying, you can't see my office obviously because we're doing a podcast, but there's a phrase that I have on my wall, and it's kind of one that I preach to all my different leadership teams. It says, do not follow where the path may lead. Go instead where there is no path and leave a trail. That kind of thought process really helps the technology evolve in organizations. Like, make your own trail, right? Do something that nobody else has done. And
my head just exploded on that one.
I like that one.
Yeah, that's another great one.
Phil's dropping gold.
I'm dropping
gold
bombs, man.
Phil, if I can, I so wish we didn't have to keep talking about the pandemic, but it's still, it's still a major factor in the country, and it's still a major, headwind overall for our industry. But when it comes to pandemic, we've kind of coined our own phrase that when it comes to hospitality, the pandemic actually has changed nothing, but has accelerated everything. So Brandon believes the adoption and the embracement of tech and innovation, which usually takes literally years, has come to market in a matter of just a few months. Given that, your position and you being on the forefront of hospitality tech now, literally for over 2 decades, I know this rings true to you, but I guess, can you share maybe a little bit about what CKE and the brands, and you mentioned kind of POS being kind of yesterday's news, respectfully, and the BYOD, bring your own device. Not saying
Don't say it's dead, Jimmy, because I think our next guest is a POS guy.
Not saying that, but how has the CK brands adapted and maybe leveraged and utilized or explored tech and grown over the last year during truly one of the most challenging periods I think any of us have lived through with respect to this market?
Well, first off, now you realize you dated me by saying the last 2 decades.
Oops.
So that
I meant Shatsy 3 decades.
Yeah,
Phil,
there you go.
5 years.
All right.
5 years out of college.
Just fresh. Yeah, I think really everything accelerated. What used to take years to plan and implement really got forthrusted into several months. In some places, even weeks.
Yep.
I mean, before we knew it, nobody was doing Zoom calls. Now we're all on Zoom. Virtual offices were really just, a thing that IT folks did. Now everybody does it from every different discipline. I think that need for the whole digital ecosystem and to become tech relevant really had been the catalyst for change. And for us independently, we've had to become technologically relevant, and we've had to reduce our technology debt. we were thrust into this organization with regards to COVID and don't have a lot of the same tools in the same digital products that our competition has, but that also our consumers demand. So we're really having to pivot still during the middle of the pandemic to get products launched that really puts the power in the people's hands, quite frankly. And I think that's a lot of the different mindsets that organizations have had to think about, not just internally how you're going to operate your business, but how are you trying to prevent COVID, the next round, whatever we call it. So we're learning from these real life, real time instances. So when it comes around, it's not nearly as the knee jerk reaction we've had to do. We can take it with stride, knowing that we've set the foundations right to be agile and to move accordingly.
That's really great. Listen, one more follow-up from me. Between Carl's Jr. and Hardee's brands, there are over 3,800 franchised or company-owned restaurants. And as you said, Phil, we're on a podcast, but I put my pinky up to my lip.
I think there's more, Jimmy.
As I said, 3,800 restaurants.
That's just domestic.
That's just domestic. There you go. And there's just one Mr. Phil Crawford. So how are you able to maintain that all your stores are properly implementing, training their staff on this new digital and technical platforms and programs? And, does it vary by region? Are you requiring franchises to implement, all tech suggestions? At the end of the day, over 4,000 stores, one Phil Crawford. How are you doing this?
I think Phil hired a CTO.
There you go. Well, since you said the pinky reference, I've cloned myself, and there's little mini me's running around.
There you go. There you go.
No, seriously, it's all about the team, right? I'm only as good as the team that I have, and I have an amazing team here, and we're continuing to hiring new leaders and new team members in order to make this acceptable and actually make it actionable. It's all about planning, organization, and buy-off. That's it. I know it sounds very simplistic, but it's also extremely hard. We need to have the leadership on board. We need to have the different departments, the different divisions, operations, but the entire leadership needs to hold hands collectively to pull this forward. And the only way you do this is by planning and execution. And it's difficult in some ways in the franchisee organization because to your second or actually third question, we are implementing it and it is being a requirement. So it also becomes an educational process for the franchisees that may not understand what technology is. They may not understand what an API is. They may not understand what the goal is of digital ordering. So you have to walk them through at a very simplistic level, but also at a very high level so they understand and grasp the concepts. But I also think at the same time, the planning and execution and the buy-off, but also put your best foot forward and say, we're going to be the first to take that leap of faith. We're going to do the technology in our own corporate restaurants, in our own corporate DMAs, and show you how it works. And after that, the rest go like dominoes. And again, it's the other part about this is really important is the training for the team. So really have operational buy-off and LMS buy-off and such to make sure that it's in a cohesive manner so it doesn't impact the guest experience is huge. And the only way to do it is we're all holding hands going in the same direction.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. As a fellow operator, I certainly understand a lot of the pain points that we have in the restaurant space and have had over the years in general. I mean, forgetting the pandemic, it's always been, anytime you tell somebody, what are you doing in the restaurant business? Oh man, that's a tough business. That's a tough business. And I always say, look, every business is tough, but people always seem to be, oh, that's a really tough business. So it's always been a tough business. So having said that, what are the things now that keep you up at night? Like what is the problem right now that you're like, oh man, I got to solve this. What's keeping you up at night?
What keeps me up at night is all about, I can put every single technology in place, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes there's too much technology and it actually becomes a detriment to the operations. I'm concerned about execution and consistency aligning with hospitality. I have to be able to create a great digital product, but equally give a great service and a great end product for the consumer. If I do any part of that and I make decisions from the 35,000 foot glass castles and don't get inside the restaurant and see where the real work is done, that's what keeps me up at night. I don't want decisions to be made, again, from all the way to the top without understanding what's at the bottom. So you need to reverse it. I had a peer back in my Yard House days that really thought about inverting that triangle. Because really, to understand and make it work, you got to put yourself in the shoes of the folks that are standing those 8 hours behind the grill making burgers. When you get that, when you get that done right, the rest will go easily.
Reminds me a little of Undercover Boss, that TV show where they throw the CEO into put him into a uniform of Carl Jr.'s or something and then throw him in the fry station.
And I'll tell you, that's actually been a great success. We've done that at Yard House. We did it at Godiva. We did it at Shake Shack. We used to call it, ironically, at Shake Shack, Nerds and Shack, just because we wanted to run shifts in the restaurant. So we understood what we were doing and implementing and the impact it took on the employees. Because if you don't have that in mind, you're in trouble.
No, it's really, really important. A lot of people don't think about it. They sit in the office and they get pitched an idea about technology. Like, oh, let's roll it out. And they don't know what implications it has or ramification has on the team and them trying to put out, like you said, a really great product. And at the end of the day, we are in the hospitality business. We are serving great food and drink. And that is what we're doing. So it's a great point. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that banter the two of you had, but I admit I was a little distracted because, my answer to what keeps you up at night is really simpler. It's spicy food. It's spicy food. So
I knew you were going indigestion and gas, Jimmy.
Yes, but I got to come up with a better answer than that. I want to dive a little bit deeper into digital transformations that you just highlighted that's happening in our industry. We had a good laugh recently with one of our other podcast guests who shared that operators certainly did not get into the restaurant business to be in the data management business. However, they find themselves often now looking at data because it's critical to the success of our industry. I think the same can be true when it comes to hands-on and people-facing, and the operators, learning to navigate in a digital world. So what advice do you have for operators that really are interested or see the need in terms of going digital?
I think, education. I think be educated on what you need that drives your business. You don't always need a new flashy Ferrari, right, when a Ford will do. You just need to find the things that meet your business needs. I think that ecosystem togetherness is the key. When it comes to the actual analytics, there's so many solutions out there. You need to find the one that gives you the actionable information you need, but most importantly is not an overbearing product that doesn't have integration, that is fully integrated into your software suites or applications, so you can get relative data, but it's easy to use, right? You don't need these big conglomerate solutions out there that cost you an arm and a leg if you don't get the return on the investment. I think that becomes the number one thing when it comes to the education. You may want to go left, but do you really need to go left when you have something in front of you that may already work? Or at the flip side of that, you need to understand that what is your goal in mind with regards to your entire digital ecosystem inside of a restaurant? Is it consumer sentiment? Is it increased orders? Is it labor tracking? Like, you need to really help define that, and that'll actually help you unlock your next digital steps.
Very cool.
KISS, keep it simple. I say stupid. Jimmy says Sally.
I say Sally.
I say Schatzy. Keep it simple, Schatzy.
There we go. You know what?
Like
no, you're done. We agree, and we will give attribution for that. The KISS theory. Keep it simple, Schatzy.
Hey, Phil, before we go on to the next segment, everyone's talking about virtual kitchens, cloud kitchens, the shared kitchens. It's the buzzword right now. It's all over the place. Can you just give us your take? I mean, you've been in the business a long time. You've seen it. What's your take on virtual? I mean, you mentioned you've got a couple brands within your own brick and mortar. I don't think they're virtual, you mentioned, but I mean, they certainly kind of sound a little bit virtual. What's your take on it?
Look, I think there's a place for it, quite frankly. I think especially as real estate changes, and I look at the heavily metropolitan areas like New York City, if I could have a kitchen that can monetize, and since a lot of the ingredients are used together in a variety of different products, and you can maximize the efficiency out of it, virtual kitchens make sense. Or vice versa, you can even flip it on its head. When we have an area that's saturated with Carl's or Hardee's, if I can flip one of those into a virtual kitchen that all they're doing is doing delivery or catering, done. I'm not actually saturating the additional restaurants out there with additional lines and cooks and so forth. I focus highly on one model that can actually produce all of that. Then the others are freed up to do additional volume. I'm a firm believer that virtual kitchens are not just a fad. You will see a dramatic change in the industry as virtual kitchens arise, especially as we start seeing the impacts on the labor model that could potentially coming in with the new administration, number one. But then also, we don't know how the economy is going to shift post-COVID. So I think that people are really going to maximize the amount of profitability by bringing multiple brands into a virtual kitchen.
Let me ask you one last question. Without giving any trade secrets, what are you guys doing at CKE? Is there any plans for virtual? This burrito kind of concept just sounded just like it.
Careful, Phil. Schatzy's been looking for someone to do Schatzy's tacos.
Yeah.
I know. Well, it's funny you say that because back in 2015, I had some friends, Brian Pearson, Joel Chisman, and Joe Tenzar. We actually did something called Four Guys Taqueria. So 5 years later, so I'm kidding. Which is true though. Look it up. It was a Merchek thing. So you know what? Everything's on the table here. I do believe there is a synergy there for our concepts to do that. I also believe that there's synergies, you know, for roving trucks and other kind of, you know, next gen technologies or next gen virtual kitchens that we can experiment with simply because we have the breadth and scope. But we also know what the future is going to hold, right? So we might as well test now and learn and see where it goes.
Jimmy, I stole your thunder on your segment, so let's go right to your segment.
Shatsy, sharing is caring. Just don't do it again. Don't do it again. All right. Listen, we launched this podcast because, you know, we like the ideas of bringing guests and talking to them, asking them questions, learning a little bit, a lot of it. It turns out our guests maybe want to ask us a few things, right? They have something to say and then maybe want to pick something up from Shats and me. So for season 3, our producer launched our newest segment called Talking Back, where we offer guests the chance to ask questions. Nothing is off the table. Phil, the mic is yours.
Don't ask me anything.
So, you know,
Jimmy.
When you started the podcast, you had said the branded marketplace. And I think that's an amazing idea. I think I'm a big believer in allowing a restaurateur or an operator to come to one place and find everything out with regards to technology. I got a question though. How do vendors get on that? Like, is there a vetting process? Because I think you really have a unique opportunity there to become that marketplace to really bring everything into one, you know, centralized place.
What I love most about your question, Phil, is Shatsy's going to answer it.
Well, you know, I'll take a first stab, but I guarantee you, Jimmy says, let me add something to that. He'll say, I'll just add. Yeah, that's a great question. I think right now, I mean, look, we can vet a lot of things ourselves, and we certainly do, and we test a lot of things. And as you know, we invest in a bunch of companies that we really like and bring in and test. So, I mean, certainly we can bring a lot of those companies on. But I think really we're looking for it's best-in-class solutions. We can't test everything. We can get information from operators like yourself and say, hey, you know, this is a really great company solving problems. How do they get on? And it's really easy to onboard a company. And I think we're also looking for the big guys, the Open Tables, the Resi, the Competes, the Averos, but also the younger startups that everybody has to have a minimal viable product. You have to be in the market. You have to have sales. You have to be beyond piloting at this point. You have to actually be, revenue generating and have a product to be sold. So that's the first thing. But other than that, really, it's anybody who has a solution that's really helping solve problems in the industry right now. So I think, to your point, we'd like every company that is solving problems and addressing headwinds for operators to get onto the marketplace. And I'll stop with that. Jimmy?
No, Shaz, that was great. But let me just add one thing.
Yeah, I know you're going to add one thing.
First of all, to be very specific with Phil's question, you would contact Brandon at marketplace at brandonstrategic.com to express an inquiry or connect with us through any of the other channels. The only thing I would add is we know our industry is incredibly fragmented. So we know there's no one size fits all. So Shatsy mentioned it is important that we have a range of providers or services just given the fragmentation of our industry. But the one theme I would say we're really promoting is hospitality centric, and that is we define that as being an ally to the industry. It is the tech companies, it's the service providers, it is the connections. We'll add professional services. It's the folks that really recognize that this is an industry that's important. We want to embolden brands. We want to bring efficiencies to brands. So there is a heavy bent on branded business, whether it's our investment business, our accelerator or advisory business, and now our marketplace, where we want to have companies that are allies to these brands and these owners and operators, because this is an industry we love, and we've got to bring these service providers and partners in a way, make our other owner operators aware of the best in class tools that will make their business more successful and efficient. So that's all I would add.
That's it, Jimmy.
That's it. And by the way, Shatz, you and Phil can't see me, but I just did a mic drop. Boom.
Well done. I heard it all the way in Nashville.
Boom.
So again, for all those listeners out there, if you're listening and you want to get on the marketplace at Brandon's, what is it? Brandon Strategic? Is that what it is? Marketplace at Brandon Strategic? Yeah. Email us.
Yeah, 3 years we've been Brandon Strategic. I'll send you a memo.
Yeah, give me that. I thought we changed it, Jimmy.
Yeah, no.
All right, Jimmy, get into your crystal ball moment.
Okay, it's time for a crystal ball moment. It's a chance for our guests to put on their Kreskin and Miss Cleo hat and predict the future. So Phil, how do you see restaurants and dining 2 years from now in relation to hospitality and tech? 2 years out, what are you predicting?
2 years out. All right. So mark this moment in time. I think
we'll have you back.
there you go. All righty. So I think it comes down to two things. I don't think you're ever going to see dining rooms the way they are. I think you're going to see basically a world where everything is done through the mobile technology devices way above what we see now. But more importantly, it's going to be all about 100% personalization. You're going to be able to walk up to a store, a board, a kiosk, whatever it is, a drive-through, know who you are. They're going to basically make assumptions who you are, what you've done. There'll be proactive pushes to you so that your basic decision matrices are gone. Your technology is going to think for you what you want to eat, believe it or not. I also think that in the future, you're having entire smart kitchens and entire smart staffs that are built out that break down all that inefficiencies in operations inside the four walls, which right now there is a lot of operational inefficiencies given how labor and human interaction works. And I think last but not least, you're going to go to a complete contactless world. I think the days of holding hands inside of restaurants, unfortunately, I'm mainly talking about the QSRs and the fast casuals, kind of go away because time is of the essence. And so how do I get people through the throughput as quickly as possible? And it's all through the digital ecosystems that come out there. I think it's drive-through, smart devices, boards, as I had mentioned, and that the consumers are in a position where they use their own devices to move forward, and there really is no more interaction.
I love it. I got to tell you, if I go to a restaurant, they just bring me food and they kind of know what I like, and I don't have to look at the menu and then have like a whole discussion about I kind of dig that, man. Just sit down and they already know that, oh man, how'd you know I wanted a steak? I love it.
It's just like the old days in Vegas, right? You'd walk up, your bartender, he sits down and gives you a martini with 2 olives. He just knew who you were. Imagine that in a digital ecosystem where they knew you're on your way there and you hit a beacon, and they know based on your history and where you're going, what you want, and they just proactively think about all this. So you walk in, you're like, wow, how do they know I was hungry for a hamburger, fries, and a Coke?
Yeah, but you know something, Phil? You know what's funny is, seriously, like there are some restaurants here in New York City that Jimmy and I go to. I mean, they've been around a long time, no menu. It is that. I go to a restaurant on the Upper East Side, it's an Italian joint. I sit down, they bring me my Johnny, Walker. They bring me a bottle of sparkling. They're like, hey, and then they just say, you want the salad and the this and that. I love it. So that it's really going back to that. I love it.
Yeah.
The quickest of stories, one of the legendary bartenders of New York, Mr. Doug Quinn, now over at Hudson and Malone, he is famous for remembering your drink. Famous. Doesn't matter when the last time we were there, he remembers your drink. I walked in, and sure enough, he gave me my drink. Schatz, what's my drink?
Mac 12 on the rocks.
Mac 12. Except I kind of had a few Macallan 12s before I got to Doug's joint. I was kind of in the mood for maybe something a little lighter, and I'm like, oh, looks like I'm going to continue drinking Macallan 12. So I appreciate that he knew my drink. I respected the hospitality, but I kind of wanted something else. But anyway, there you go.
Yeah.
I thought it'd be a Shirley Temple.
Jimmy makes fun of me. Never mix anything. I told him I came back from Italy. I was drinking Negronis. He's like, Shat, stop with the Negronis. Okay, it takes 20 minutes for the guy to make it. Just stop. Just Johnny Walker on the rocks. Let's move past the Negronis.
I don't mind putting things on my drink as long as it's ice.
Exactly.
That's it.
Exactly. All right, listen, Phil. Now it's time for the best segment of the entire podcast because it's my segment. It's called Branded Quickfire. I'm going to ask you 5 lightning round questions. Don't think too hard. First answer comes into mind. Are you ready?
Ready.
Favorite professional sporting event?
Baseball.
What are you getting dinner from tonight? What are you getting for dinner from tonight?
I'm actually making it myself. I got a new air fryer and I'm addicted.
So is that part of the diet that you're doing in Nashville?
That's part of my diet in Nashville. Yeah, I'm trying to be healthy and look healthy at the same time.
Yeah, I got to tell you, it's funny. What's your favorite food city in the world?
Tokyo, Japan.
Didn't see that one coming, Jimmy.
Jesse, people have been talking about that. That is coming up. It's getting clearly we got to make a visit.
Awesome.
I got to get to this Tokyo. When travel resumes to complete normalcy, where's the first place you want to go?
Norway. No, I'm kidding.
Oh. I was going to be like, hey, all right, listen.
I was like, that's a first. I was like, all right, he got us on that one.
Any place in the Mediterranean.
Can't argue with that, man. That sounds real good right now. All right. If you were to challenge Jimmy or I to a game of shuffleboard, Who would you have the better odds of beating?
Hands down, it's Schatzy. Come on.
It was hands down. It wasn't even like
Hands
a
down.
thought.
No,
Why
it's
do
not.
I look like I suck at shuffleboard? Schatzy, you look like you suck at everything.
Yes, you would be toast.
Yeah. All right, Jimmy. Jimmy, yes, I think you're what, 20? What is it? Our 24th podcast. I think I maybe have one win.
I think I'm 23-1. This is good. This is working out.
Yeah, nice.
All right, listen, Phil, we want to thank you for joining us for the podcast today and for sharing your great insights. We appreciate your hard work and your team's hard work for the industry, not during this troubled time, but really always. If you want to get in touch with Phil directly, you can email us. You're going to email Brandon, podcast@brandedstrategic.com. That's podcast@brandedstrategic.com, and we'd be happy to make the introduction. We're not going to repeat the mistake of giving out our guest cell phone numbers.
Cell phone numbers?
Yeah, that was a mistake. First season, we learned, we got better. And to our listeners, we can't thank you enough for taking the time to tune in. We know there are literally hundreds of thousands of podcasts out there.
Jimmy, Phil said he was giving something away. He said that the first 100 callers get a Carl's Jr.'s t-shirt.
He did not say that.
He didn't?
No, he absolutely did not say that. And
is he at least going to give us a shirt?
I'll give you the shirt off my back.
There you go. How about that? Shirt on the back. Schatzy, I was being sentimental with our listeners, and then look at you coming in with humor. Look at that. That's the timing.
I apologize.
That's all right. I do want to thank the listeners because there are literally hundreds of thousands of podcasts out there, and we appreciate that you choose to hang out with us. And our subscriber count is growing exponentially. So it tells us that something's going right.
10,000 subscribers, Jimmy.
Something's going right, and we appreciate it. Please join us the next time. We're going to welcome our friend and our business partner, Mr. Renee Prats of Drive Kindness. Renee Prats, Drive Kindness.
Solving last mile, Jimmy.
Exactly. Solving the last mile. That's no small task. So you won't want to miss it. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the podcast. Be part of the 10,000 and growing so you don't miss out on exciting guests that we'll have coming up in the future. And even better yet, invite a friend to hang out with us the next time. So until then, a big thank you to Phil Crawford. We appreciate his time. And this is Jimmy Frischling, your finance guy, signing off and passing it to my boy Schatzy.
Hey, thanks, Jimmy. This is the restaurant guy, a.k.a. Schatzberg from the Hospitality Hangout. Thanks again. Thanks, Phil. This was great.
Absolutely my pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.
Hey, everybody. Schatzy, the restaurant guy here, and I want to talk to you about point of sale systems. Touch Bistro. It's the all-in-one point of sale and restaurant management system. That's right. It's an entire restaurant management system that makes restaurants easier to run. It makes it easier. It basically runs by itself. You use Touch Bistro, and basically the restaurant runs by itself. It provides the most essential front of house and back of house and guest engagement solutions on one super duper powerful platform. Touch Bistro helps restaurateurs streamline and simplify their operations, allowing them to spend less time manually connecting the dots and more time connecting with guests and growing their business. That's right. You will grow your business 50 to 60 to 70, maybe even double by using Touch Bistro. And that's a fact. That's a fact. It's built to meet the unique needs of the restaurant industry. Touch Bistro, it's fast, it's reliable, super easy to use, and it has all the features that restaurateurs need to increase sales and deliver a great guest experience, and you save both time and money. So listen, go visit touchbistro.com and learn more right now. That's touchbistro.com, and you will find the greatest point of sale experience you've ever had.